country.
Rain's Q&A. Or Q&A with Mr. and Mrs. Rain. I think.
So we've been, we put out the question on a couple of videos back about if anybody had any questions to ask Mr. and Mrs. Rain about, well, pretty much anything. We're not going to answer all the questions that might come up, but any of the reasonable ones, of course, we will. And so we have a couple of questions, actually a notebook of questions that we're working on right now.
Anyway, sorry about the dog. She's just really needing cuddles right now.
Very needy.
Yes, she hugs and she nuzzles, and she, of course, as soon as we sat down, she decided she needed cuddles.
So anyway, we have a couple of questions, or depending on how much time we have, we might answer a few more. But we have a running notebook of different questions that people ask us from time to time that we thought we might share with y'all. We just have a great community that adds and shares in the comments section, and we just really appreciate that. So our first question that we have is...
Sorry, both dogs are wanting attention right now.
Really needy.
Oh my gosh. Okay. I'll hold you for a little bit.
So...
The first question was about the neighbors, and I quit.
So we had a really good question from a viewer that knows that we only live on a third of an acre, and there's a lot of people out there trying to homestead or actually homesteading on a small piece of property. So that's a very valid question. I mean, what do people think about you as a neighbor right next door? You're not homesteading, but somebody across the street has 50 head of cattle in their yard and 2,000 chickens and goats and ducks and geese and all that other good stuff. Well, we don't. We have 7 Buff Orpington chickens, and so they supply us with ample supply of eggs. We try to minimize the impact here as much as we can in order to keep the smells down. I mean, we could probably have more here. We could probably have a miniature cow. We could probably have goats and different things, but we don't feel that is being responsible both to our neighbors and also to the animals by having more than what we have. I mean, obviously we would like to get more land someday, and we're working towards that, hopefully, but right now we feel it is not being very good to the animals. That we like to let the chickens free range in the backyard. We like to give them ample room, so we just don't have a big mud hole back there. As it is, you know how chickens are. If they're cooped up in one place for too long, they tend to harvest everything around them and peck things dry, and then pretty soon you just have big mud holes.
Especially if you live in a place that gets as much rain as ours does, it gets very muddy. So we
exactly
like to give them a few hours a day where they can, play
be
outside.
Free and, have a place to roam and different things like that. So the our chickens are very healthy because we've elected not to overrun our small piece of property with too much livestock.
Right.
We grow what we can. Being in a small space, you have to be very creative on how you plant things. You have to take advantage of growing up instead of out. You have to be careful on how you place some of your off-grid. We're not totally off-grid, but we try to do as much off-grid as we comfortably can. We have solar, and we have different things to augment our off-grid or our homestead type of lifestyle of independence. The solar panels are faced in such a direction that the neighbors, they really can't see them unless they're really looking for them. So we try to keep the aesthetics of the property somewhat acceptable to the neighbors. And I know that in one of our side yards I have a dump truck and a backhoe, and
firewood.
and we have firewood on that one corner. But we try to keep the place neat and presentable in such a way that it's not too aesthetically displeasing to the neighbors. We have neighbors that are in this area, that might have chickens and they might have dogs, and we try to keep the dogs quiet, and we try to keep the chickens in our own. We keep the chickens in our own yard. We try to keep the smells and different things down in the chicken coop and in the chicken run. And anybody who has chickens or any livestock know about the waste byproducts of those animals. And so we try to keep those things composted and recycled to where they don't give off any smells to the point where it drifts off into the neighbor's yard.
Yeah.
So those are some of the things that we try to do to keep our homestead acceptable to the neighbors. We do live in an area, we do live in a small town that is a little bit more forgiving for those types of lifestyles. So those are some of the things that we try to do to help.
Yeah, and that's also the reason right now why we don't have any roosters. So I'd like to get a rooster or two at some point so that we can, be able to
Propagate.
Make our own chickens, quote unquote. But out of respect for the neighbors and being kind of close to them, and back where the chickens are, the backside of people's houses, that's typically where their bedrooms are, and we just want to be respectful. Now, a couple of the neighbors close to us, I don't think would mind at all. I think right now as it is, because we have a lot of really good neighbors, and because of the type of town we live in, like he said, most people just don't think much of that. But when it comes to a rooster here, I know that there was another neighbor that had roosters, and they were very noisy. There were 3 of them all the time, and the one neighbor right next door to them was getting a little frustrated. So,
and we are looking into, if we do get a rooster, I know there's ways of keeping them quiet by like a crow collar or something like that. So we might get ourselves a rooster yet and outfit him with a crow collar so we can keep him somewhat quiet.
But I would like, if anyone has experience with the crow collar, because I just have I keep kind of going back and forth on how I feel about that, because I just don't really know. And so if anyone has experience on that and you've used it, what do you think about it? Please interject below. I would like to know your thoughts. Because I don't know, I'm usually against anything that kind of counteracts the natural flow of things, and a rooster is made to crow, and yet at the same time it would sure be nice to have one here. So I would like to be able to work things out in such a way that we can do that, but being also respectful of the rooster, if that makes sense.
We want a rooster so we can reproduce those chickens here self-sufficiently wise, and also give us a sense of independence and continue that propagation, keep fresh hens and keep fresh eggs coming in, and rotate the animals out. So
another thing that makes the neighbors at least happy with what we do is that we're happy to take all their leaves in the fall,
right.
And they love that. And
leaves and grass clippings.
Grass clippings, as long as they've got organic grass, they're not spraying chemicals on it, then they just love that. We'll take that stuff, and they don't have to take it to the dump, because otherwise that's what they do. They have to pay to run it to the dump. And
no, our neighbors are we have great neighbors. The neighbors that we have are respectful for each other's privacy, and we try to be respectful of each other's space. And so, I think that's being exercised pretty well.
yeah,
We have a neighbor that's moved away now, but he's very much into agricultural type,
right.
and he's actually got a degree in horticulture.
Yeah.
And very resourceful, very knowledgeable guy. We've learned a lot from him.
A lot.
We kind of miss him, but
We have, again, where we are, we've just got such a wide variety. Our particular neighborhood, the people closest to us, there's really no one else doing what we're doing. But you just go a little bit farther, and there are people that do have chickens. I mean, just on, like, I think the next street over, there's people that have chickens. And
Right. If you stand out in the yard, you can hear a rooster crow. I mean, he's not right next door, but he's close.
Right.
So.
And then, like I said, we on another video. I mean, well, I don't know. They probably don't have cows down there anymore, but there was cattle down there at that end, and
They do. They're trying to sell that property down
and
there.
the opposite end, there's somebody that has horses. So it's not, it's pretty lenient here where we're at. So we're grateful for that. But if you're in an area that has, I mean, everybody's situation is going to be different. You might not be blessed enough to live in the type of area we do when it comes to that kind of thing, and or have the kind of neighbors around you that, that aren't going to complain about the smell of the chickens or the sounds or whatever it is. And then, and then of course you've got city ordinances and all that kind of stuff you got to look into. And so you just got to find out what these things are. I recommend getting out and just conversing with your neighbors if you don't know. Just talk to them and see what they think or how they would feel. And as long as you're willing to be respectful of them, they're going to be a lot more open to what you have. So maybe your city ordinances don't have any big deal against front yard gardens and having chickens or whatever, but as far as the neighbors go, I do think if you're just very open and honest with them and just ask them how they feel, that, I think you're going to get a better response rather than just going for it. Now, for us, we pretty much just did things, but we also did it with the mindset of trying to keep,
trying to be mindful,
trying to be respectful of our neighbors. And, it's just like my front yard. You saw the video of, where Mr. Rain was the more recent one where he's bringing the horse poop. That's just my front yard garden. It's the area I've been expanding a little bit at a time, but our main garden is in the back of the house, which is fully fenced in and mostly is not visible, though I still try to keep it beautiful when it's growing. But same thing with the front yard, as I lay things out and grow things, I try to grow things out there that I know will be pleasing in looks to the neighbors when they look out their window or they drive by and they see that. I want it to have, a certain amount of landscaping and a certain amount of bright colors out there, so it just maybe looks more like a flower garden than like a vegetable garden. Though I don't think any of my neighbors would care what I grew out there, still I do try to keep that in mind. And, and besides, I do like things to look nice.
Sure.
Yeah, it's nice to me too. I like to be able to look out there and see pretty.
We have another question. Question number 2 is...
Was about the kids.
Yeah, okay. What... Are kids on board with what we're doing? Are they homesteady, self-reliant, minded kids? Well, that's an interesting question.
They were pretty much grown when we got serious about what we're doing.
Yeah, they are, and they kind of look at us out of the side of their eye and say, wonder mom and dad are probably a little off the deep end. I think they understand where we're at. I don't think they're diabolically opposed to what we're doing, but they aren't really practicing they really aren't practicing our type of lifestyle.
Well, I think where the thing is that our oldest son, those who've been following us for quite a while were watching when Ryan first got his first house. That's our oldest son. And it was a fixer-upper, so he got a really good deal on it. His very first debt is his house, and it's a very small debt because of that. But obviously, because of that, all of his time over the past couple of years have really been focused on when he's home, getting the house fixed up, getting it livable, and it's beautiful. And I promise those of you who have been following us for some time and saw the work that Mr. Rain and Ryan were doing on the house, there will be an update video coming soon so I can show the house in its final total glory. I'm just waiting for the nice weather to come out where Ryan can get out there and finish doing a little bit of trim work outside. That's really all that needs to be done. Our youngest son is right now in the process of looking for a new, for his own house that he would like to buy. He would rather not have to rent. He wants to buy a place, and that's what he's doing. So, and we're hoping that goes really well for him. But because of that, that's where their mindsets are right now. But I can see both of them, because though we did most of what we're doing now, we got into after they were grown. Though I did do some gardening and stuff with them when they were young, and so they've got I think there'd be a little bit of interest in there eventually, but I think that's something that's going to have to grow. Now, if I had one thing to do all over again when it came to homeschooling and raising my kids, I would have been way more into this lifestyle then, having chickens and bringing in the eggs and having them see all that kind of stuff and growing the medicinal herbs. And I believe that they would be more readily into that right now. However, I do see things that I know that they respect and appreciate us for. And in fact, both of my kids, whenever anything comes up, any kind of illness or anything, which is kind of rare because they're all pretty healthy, but they usually call at mom or come over and say, hey, do you have anything for this? Do you have anything for that? Because they know that I'm into natural health and healing and using medicinal herbs and different things like that. And, it's kind of cool.
I think they're still into the self-sufficiency. Cause,
Yeah.
Ryan, he likes, and Justin both. I say Ryan because Justin right now doesn't have his own house and everything like that. So, but I think when he gets out on his own, the hope is that he'll call on his dad to help him out, so we can learn together. So
like Ryan did.
It'll be an education. Yeah, Ryan, he got a fixer-upper. We worked on that together. Now he's likes to go and get tools and stuff like that, and packs
He's
that along with him. Yeah, so all those dreams that I had when those kids were growing up are starting to come to fruition with Ryan, and I think Justin will do. Come.
I believe
They're
so,
both those kids have a good head on their shoulders. They're both financially right, and so we're pretty excited for both of those guys.
Because they're both they both bought, they paid cash for they each bought 2 rigs. They paid cash for them. They each bought a camp trailer to start out with to live in. They paid cash for those, and everything else. So owning a house for each of them, for Justin hopefully in the near future, and then for Ryan now, is the first and hopefully only debt they'll ever have.
Right.
So there are some things that have stuck and that they've learned, and Justin, he was one, as far as self-sufficient, when he was 6 years old. I was just talking about this. He loved eggs. He wanted eggs all the time, eggs. And he was always like, I'd be in the middle of doing something, middle of the day, washing dishes or whatever it was I was doing, and Mom, make me some eggs. Will you make me some eggs, please? And finally I just said, okay, you know what? I think it's time for you to learn how to cook your own eggs. And he was real small. He was pretty short for his age at the time. And so I just pulled the stool up to the stove and showed him how to scramble eggs. And from that day on, he got into cooking for himself. He loved it. And he wanted to learn how to make every type of cooked egg there was under the sun, and he did. He learned on his own how to even do poached eggs, which I'd never done. He learned how to do deviled eggs and all of them, and so I think it was great. My kid, he still does to this day, cooks for himself and comes up with his own little recipes, and so there is some. There is that kind of self-sufficiency and DIY in there. So I see him once he finally gets his own place and is able to do more. I wouldn't doubt that maybe down the road they may consider chickens or
it's all about priorities. When you're younger, you've got different priorities and different things that you focus your time on. So, but I think in time, both those kids have good heads on their shoulders and are doing very well. So I think that's coming in time. Yeah. So anyway.
But if you're just getting into homesteading and you have young kids, or you maybe been into it for a while, obviously you're already there with your kids, but do all you can to really ingrain all this self-sufficiency, instead of just being, as parents we have a tendency to be like, just let me do it, because we know that we can get it done faster, rather than, because somebody mentioned this on a comment and I appreciated it so much. we have a tendency to want to just do it ourselves because it was quicker.
Right.
Rather than teaching the kids, or at least taking them in there and saying, watch how I do this. This is so important. As young as you can get them, obviously age related, or obviously age relevant to what they can handle, but really get them involved. And even if later down the road when they first leave home maybe they're not going to be interested in it, at least they've got those skills if it comes up when they need it.
Yeah, I would have to just back her up on that one, because I know when I was younger I seemed like I was always pressed for time, and so I would get out in the shop and I'd just do it, and sometimes leave the kids out of those types of things. But looking back on your site is 2020, and if I was to do it all over again, I would do it differently and try to make it, just take a little bit more time, invest in your kids, get them involved, give them ownership in some of the things that you have them help you with.
Right.
But I think because we were kind of do-it-yourselfers, I think some of that stuff is rubbed off, especially on Ryan. Seeing him out on his own and taking ownership in that house. The house is his.
Trying to fix
what
anything
he's
that goes
doing is his, and so it's pretty exciting to see.
Right.
And I think Justin will be the same way when he gets
I'm
out there.
positive
so.
he is, because he's very particular about
Right,
how
exactly.
taking care of things.
So yeah, we're
Yep.
pretty excited about
Yep.
that. Yeah, any questions? Put them in the comments below and converse with us, and we'll converse with you back and converse with each other.
And we'll just be a bunch of conversers.
Yeah. So anyway,
Thanks for watching,
take care.
and God bless.